FAO and partners validated the Fish for ACP and Oyster Value Chain program in the Gambia. Patrice Lumumba's remains finally landed in DR Congo more than 60 years after his assassination. And South Sudan's government embarks on a road construction project to mitigate transportation challenges. Well, this and more coming ahead on The World Today. Hello, you are watching The World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, and we are coming to you live from our main studios in Banjul. Many thanks for joining us. I am Amadou Kante, and now the news in detail. Now, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization Wednesday convened a stakeholders validation and vision development forum for the Fish for ACP and Oyster Value Chain program at Carava Bijotel. Now, the Fish for ACP project seeks to unlock the potential of sustainable fisheries and aquaculture in Africa, the Caribbean and the Pacific by supporting fisheries and aquaculture value chain in the three regions. It also aims to enhance productivity and competitiveness of mangroves oyster in the Gambia. Moses Mendy reports.
The Validation and Vision Development Workshop stems from FAO's synergy to support fisheries and aquaculture value chains from 2020 to 2025. Climate change has hit hard on the production of oyster farmers in the Gambia, which has been dominated by women who harvest, process, and market the oysters. The recent oil spill in the country has also severely affected production. Therefore, the workshop will also validate the results of functional analysis and evaluation of the economic, social, and environmental sustainability of the oyster sector. Moshibudi Rampedi, FAO representative in the Gambia, said the program aligns with Gambia government strategic priorities and assured that her organization will remain attentive to the observations, proposals, and recommendations resulting from the workshop. She pointed that a massive number of women will also benefit from the project.
The Fish for ACP program intends to improve the oyster value chain and artisanal sector. Around 1,000 women are expected to benefit from the entire production chain, from harvesting to marketing and processing. Oysters are an essential source of protein and micronutrients. They may or will generate substantial income for the women if correctly and adequately supported. And being in the Gambia, we hope that all the women that are in the room with us and those that may not be in the room, from the West Coast to the Tanbi National Wetland Park, will derive benefit from this program.
Mrs. Rampedi added that an oyster value chain analysis report has already identified interesting avenues for improvement in harvesting, post-harvesting techniques, and quality control standards to create real income opportunities. Honorable Musa Drame, Minister of Fisheries, believes that upgrading the oyster value chain will trigger sound environmental management attitudes, as well as create employment and generate foreign exchange through the formalization of oyster exports. He explained that the development of mangrove oyster will add value to the livelihoods of oyster farmers, among other benefits.
The development of the mangrove oyster will add value to the livelihood of women as oyster harvesters, processors, and marketers. It will equally expand the commercialization of oyster aquaculture, implement and replicate existing co-management plans for the wild oyster, improve quality in terms of product handling and processing, enhance food safety standards and official controls, as well as improve support services to the oyster value chain.
To him, the project will attract investments in fisheries and aquaculture and also ensure sustainable management and utilization of marine and aquatic resources. Stefan Mead, head of cooperation of the EU delegation to the Gambia, congratulated the project team, saying that time is ripe to increase the oyster value chain.
The time has come to increase the benefit of the oysters value chain in the Gambia. This value chain should take a greater share in the fisheries and aquaculture sector. In particular, it has already been said, when food security and employment are concerned.
The global initiative has a financial volume of 4 million euros and seeks to enhance access to market channeling, ensure decent working conditions and guide against overexploitation of stocks. The project is being implemented through FAO partnership with the government, the European Union, and many more. Moses Mendy, Eyeafrica News.
Now moving on elsewhere in the continent, the coffin of the slain Congolese independence hero, Patrice Lumumba, has finally returned to his home country after years of requests by Congolese authorities, more than 60 decades after his assassination. Now, DR Congo's president was among the dignitaries, including traditional leaders, who received Lumumba's remains and paid their last respect to the former premier. Now, while some Congolese nationals expressed delight over the return of the remains, others are asking the Belgian state to compensate Lumumba's family and other victims. Let's have more details of that in this report.
A highly anticipated arrival. The remains of Congolese independence hero Patrice Emery Lumumba are back in the DRC capital, Kinshasa. Congolese soldiers march in honor of Lumumba's only remains, a tooth that was recently handed back to his family by Belgium. The DRC president, government officials, and traditional leaders were at the airport to pay tribute to the former premier.
He was the one who was the first who speak about openly about what the colonial treatment was going on. He expressed his feeling that we are treating like animals, and this causes death.
Patrice Lumumba was a strong advocate for the independence of his country and other African colonies. He became DRC's first prime minister at the age of 34. But he got assassinated in 1961 by separatists and Belgian mercenaries. Many Congolese are excited about the return of his remains.
We are very happy to see that Patrice Emery Lumumba's remains have been brought back home after so many years. His assassination caused us so much grief.
We are happy that our hero's remains are back after so many years. Lumumba was killed around the time I was born, and I learnt about his great achievements.
Lumumba's remains are back in Kinshasa from his ancestral home in Sankuru and the southeastern region where he was assassinated. Earlier this month, the Belgian king visited the DRC and expressed regret for the colonial-era abuses committed by his ancestors. Many Congolese hailed King Philip's speech but called on Belgium to compensate Lumumba's family and the relatives of other victims.
The DRC government has announced 3 days of mourning for Patrice Lumumba before his burial on June 30th, when the country will mark its 62nd independence anniversary.
And from the report in DRC, let's come back home because a serious fire outbreak has ravaged 6 apartments to houses in a compound in Joshua near Kandiba School. The Tunkarakunda family is left homeless after the unfortunate cause of fire ravaged 6 apartments. Mafuji Sise has the details in this report.
Alfuseni Jallo is one of the victims. He said he was called and informed that his house was on fire and found out that nothing was left in the house when he returned. Mr. Jallo said he lost all his household items, including $48,000 cash in the fire. He said he is now calling for urgent support to him and his family. Another victim, Hoja Jallo, also explained that she returned from her daily selling at the market when she found the incident at home. She said she lost her entire savings of $6,000 cash, including her husband's $15,000. She stressed that she is only left with the clothes she wore. Amalika Yusufa, a tenant in Tunkarakunda, explained that the fire started in the first apartment, and before noticing, it quickly engulfed the rest of the 6 apartments, burning everything, including the roof, corrugates, and household items.
But the cause of the fire, nobody knows the cause of fire, where it come from. But the meter breaker is not good since the time I moved into this house. So when there's a fire in one room, when there's fire, the breaker, if it's working, it will automatically go down. And when it goes, instead of the fire to jump to the next room apartment, to the next apartment, it will stop because the breaker is working. But if the breaker is not working, there's nothing that we can do. The fire will keep on jumping, going like that, until the only thing we can do is to break the house. Since we don't have the key of the house, I try and use my crowbar to try to open it. But this crowbar, as you can see, the crowbar, I try, but the flames are coming. It's too much. I'm suffocated. So I went out, and I saw one man just coming. So the man took the crowbar and try. So he succeeded, open the house, and the women environments, they bring buckets of water and they quench the fire.
No one seems to know the cause of the fire. All the tenants refuse that they did not leave any burning material in their houses before going out. However, what is certain is that the entire compound is using 1 meter with a faulty breaker for a long time, but the owner of the compound did nothing about it, even though the tenants made several complaints. It's only the neighbors that helped to quench the inferno. Some said they called the attention of the fire and rescue services, who only came to the ground with an empty tank. Fire outbreaks are becoming almost uncontrollable in the Gambia, leaving victims to start life at zero without any compensation from the central government. They usually receive help from philanthropists, families, and friends. For Eyeafrica News, I am Mafuji Sise.
We will bring you more details of that fire accidents later on, but for the meantime, let's move on, because South Africa has been the latest destination for several European countries for coal business as alternative suppliers, following Western sanctions against Russia over Putin's army invasion of Russia. Now, this new charcoal initiative business is aimed at helping EU countries meet up their energy demands, whilst the South African mining industry plans to maintain this profit-making venture. Some operators have highlighted challenges they are facing in the process. Here's more details of that in this report.
South Africa's Richards Bay coal terminal delivered 15% of the coal that passes through the facility to European countries by the end of May this year. That was up from 4% in 2021.
It's clear that Europe is buying more coal from South Africa, and because they have to fill the gap that is created by Russia. They're not buying Russian coal, but they're buying South African coal. And I think South Africa can export more, but we have different challenges. It could be production, it could be rail, it could be port, but at the end of the day, South Africa is not benefiting from the current demand coming from Europe.
Coal producers say the biggest challenge they face are issues with the rail network to get the coal from the mine to the export harbour.
We have challenges, and then we end up being inefficient because of the inefficiencies that are created by rail and port. But one thing that I should say, that RBCT is efficiently run, and there are no issues in RBCT, but because rail cannot cope with the allocation that RBCT has, and RBCT can move, then the amount of coal that's moved to a port, to Richards Bay Coal Terminal, which is the majority of the coal that's exported out of South Africa, is less and less every month.
Transnet is working with its coal clients to resolve some of its challenges.
And I think that collaboration is working. especially on the security side. We started getting the good results of that collaboration. But I think that there's more collaboration needed regarding dealing with the inefficiencies on the loading, offloading, the trains, having rolling stock availability, be it locomotives, be it wagons, and making the infrastructure looked after and maintained. I think there's still collaboration needed in those fields.
There's a view that South African coal miners will still benefit from inflated coal prices.
Coal prices are still going to be high, not maybe as high as where it is now, but it's still going to be high because there's a relationship broken between Russia and West. So Europe will carry on buying from South Africa and from Colombia as much as they can, and the product that Russia was moving to Europe is mostly going to China and India currently, and that will carry on.
South African coal miners have taken advantage of the increased demand from Europe. It's now a question of making sure that this continues into the foreseeable future.
And from that coal business report in South Africa, next to Nigeria we go, because as part of efforts to minimize the farmer-herd conflict in the country, an agricultural farm initiated by a young Nigerian is helping to enhance modern livestock production to de-escalate the tensions. Now, the new drive is focused on training herders on how to set up a modern cattle ranch with a view to, of course, eradicating the growing crisis between farmers and herders. While some cattle herders raise concern about the new initiatives in 2020, statistics reveal that more than 1,000 deaths in the West African country were caused by farmer-herder differences. Here's more details of that in this report.
Olawale Tumise is the founder of Real People Concept, an agricultural firm that provides technological solutions and support for modern livestock production. It was born out of his quest to find a solution to the protracted farmer-herder crisis in Nigeria. He teaches herders how to set up a modern cattle ranch, a viable alternative to nomadic herding.
There are a lot of crises here and there, herdsmen, farmers clashes, and basically it's about feed. So when you are able to solve feed, then I believe that those crises will be minimized or eradicated. So we're into a lot of education, capacity building on pasture development and conservation of this forage in terms of silage and hay.
So far, the hub has trained more than 300,000 people, including farmers, herders, and students. Modern ranching system, feed production, and artificial insemination are some of the areas that trainees are getting educated.
It's the system I would like to follow, or I would like to adapt to, because it's even less stressful. Even for farmers like us, moving around from one place to the other is not easy, honestly.
What I gained from the training is how to combine these feeds. Example is mixing cassava peel with grass and corn peel. We buy this and mix them for them to eat.
Although the fully intensive system at the cattle hub is promising, there are concerns.
Many don't believe that our animals, our cattle can be confined to a pen.
We try to adopt the method we learned, but it's so expensive compared to the system we are practicing.
So compared to the model we are practicing.
Statistics show that over 1,500 deaths in Nigeria were caused by farmer-herder clashes in 2020 alone. Countries like South Sudan, too, had been hit by similar conflicts that have left dozens dead. The government there recently signed a regional protocol to promote the legal movement of livestock across the East African region, an option which Tumise says could further degenerate to bigger conflicts, and ranching may be a more effective solution to the crisis.
This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News bulletin live from our studios in Banjul and from the reporter in Nigeria. We now take a break and come back shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Eyeafrica TV, and once again, many thanks for joining us. And let's now look at the rest of the stories. And as promised earlier, let's return to development of the fire outbreak at Joswan yesterday, because the Gambia Fire and Rescue Services has raised concerns over Tuesday's afternoon attack on its personnel who were on a mission to quench the fire outbreak at Tunkerekunda in Joswan. Now, this unfortunate incident occurred following the team's arrival to help put off the fire, but their arrival were welcomed by a hostile crowd that attacked the personnel and eventually caused harm to them and destroyed their appliances. Mavuji Sise tells us more of that in this report.
On Tuesday afternoon, the Gambia Fire and Rescue Services were called to respond to a fire emergency at Joswan, but upon their arrival, they were greeted by an angry mob of men and women who were armed with stones. They break some parts of the tank trucks and wounding some officers. In their reaction, spokesperson of the Gambia Fire and Rescue Services, Pate Jiba, stressed their condemnation of the act of the Joswankers.
Because there has been time without numbers that our firefighters have received some kind of hostile situations while serving the need of the general public. That is to say, bullying the firemen and women, and at the same time, destroying the fire appliance that is not meant to be destroyed because these are precious materials. For your information, yesterday at around 12:30, the Gambia Fire Rescue Services received a telephone call from Joswan, and the telephone call was a fire call. Immediately on receipt of the telephone call, the fire engine and its men departed towards the scene of fire. On arrival, around 12:40, they found a hostile crowd, and the crowd decided that they should bully the firefighter by stoning at them and then destroying the fire engine. As a result, it caused some injuries to our firemen and a damage to the appliance, which will be shown later during the episodes. We from the fire department, on behalf of the chief fire officer and the entire management and staff of the fire department, would like to seize this opportunity to kindly condemn this act or the repetition of this form of behavior, because it is not telling well about our country. We are a peace-loving nation, and we are a nation that is called friendly and smiling faces. Fire engines that come to the Gambia are a sole donation from our Avon counterparts. And it will be very disheartening and sad from their end to understand that the donated materials to the Gambia, free of charge, are being vandalized by Gambians themselves, just in the interest of some few personalities.
Piero Jiba emphasized the significance of his institution in the society, saying that with the increased rise of such incidents, the risk of firefighting within the society will be high, and that can create room for loss of life due to fire outbreaks. Kanifing Municipal Council Deputy Mayor Binta Jane Jallo also condemned the actions of the Joswankers, emphasizing the importance and risk role of fire rescue officers. She implored on local authorities to engage members of their communities to avoid a replica of such incidents.
What had happened yesterday is not a very good sign from the community. What they did is wrong, because the fire service are here to save the life of this municipality and to protect our properties. They are not our enemies. They are here to guide us. If at all they call fire services and they are late to respond, they must know why before they respond, or they should leave them to do their duties. Then after, they come together and address issues. But for the community to come out and stoning the vehicle, which is not, it doesn't tell well. As the municipality, we have to come together to make sure to move the municipality forward.
The councillor of Joswan ward, Habib Sise, also expressed dismay over the action of his ward members and extended apologies for their actions. He said he now wishes to engage stakeholders for more sensitization as a form of redress.
We are regrettable and shameful, because the children or the youths who did such a vandalism, they came from the families. We are the parents of them. So at the moment here, I would say we are in a full same of motion, because the thing which happened is very serious, even dangerous too. Fire service, they are our friends, our brothers, and they are there to save us.
Diverse portfolios within the fire and rescue services gathered reiterated the factors that could lead to the late arrival of their personnel at an affected scene, which he said could include the narrow seas of roads, among others. They seek the cooperation of the public via local authorities to better execute their operations to ensure the safety of the people. Community elders also highlighted the significant role of fire and rescue officers, and in their apologies recommended for more sensitization for a wider understanding of the challenges of the fire department with regards to services. For Eyeafrica News, I am Mafuji Sise.
I'm from the report there by Mafuji Sise. On to our final story now, because South Sudanese government is embarking on a road transformation project which is expected to help rekindle the country's economy. According to the World Bank, the decline in oil production due to the 3 consecutive years of flooding could contract the East African nations. Now, despite the prevailing economic challenges, some analysts observe that the authorities need to do more to enhance the country's development agenda. Here's more details of that in this report.
One of the challenges South Sudan faces is the lack of a proper road network. Things grown or made in one part of the country cannot easily reach other areas where they might be needed. The government says it is embarking on a new road building project to stimulate development. 5 major highways are now being built, which will connect the capital to the rest of the country.
As a landlocked country, our access to regional markets depends on good roads and bridges. Internally, our own access to production centers is another key area that will be served by these bridges.
However, the World Bank warns that the economy will contract because of a drop in oil production in South Sudan. Petroleum production has reduced due to 3 consecutive years of flooding. Some oil fields are now submerged. It is a major problem as the government depends on oil money to fund more than 95% of the country's budget.
We are optimistic that the volume of financing that South Sudan can access in the future will grow. This is subject to greater peace, greater stability, greater reforms happening on the ground, and I think the more peace and stability you have, the more development you will have.
South Sudan's government has often struggled to finance the country's budget. It has been borrowing from the central bank to finance the budget deficit. And one economic analyst says the government needs to do more to promote development in the East African country.
We need to correct the way we finance the deficit. We need to create real resources, collect taxes properly. Don't print money. If you print money, you are printing inflation, and you are depreciating your currency, and the cycle goes on.
Before the Russia-Ukraine crisis, the fuel price in South Sudan was less than $1 per liter, but it is now $2 a liter. Prices of basic goods have also risen across the country, and there is the ongoing problem of continued violence. Long years of civil war have displaced many here who are not involved in any form of production. The internally displaced persons still depend on food aid. The country's 2018 peace deal has brought hope, but it has failed to end violence at local level, and many cannot yet return to their own homes.
And a report there from South Sudan. eventually brings us to the end of this news edition. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the privilege of your company. Thanks for watching and do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.